Hello there, I'm Jane RANSOM, co-author of the book Ignite Your Leadership, and here with me today is Lolly Daskal. Lolly Daskal is the founder of Lead From Within, a global leadership, executive coaching, and consulting firm based in New York City. The Huffington Post named her one of its most inspiring women in the world. With more than 30 years of experience, Lolly has worked with numerous Fortune 500 companies and organizations of all sizes in a wide range of industries, including biomedical, energy, government, pharmaceuticals, technology, banking, finance, nonprofits, and startup entrepreneurs. Lolly wrote her upcoming book, The Leadership Gap: What Gets Between You and Your Greatness, in order to help anyone who wants to succeed to overcome their gaps and to achieve their greatness. Lolly, it's a huge honor to be interviewing you today. Welcome.
What a privilege it is to be here with you today, Jane. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And, what we want to talk about today in large part is leading from, your key topic, leading from within. And so I wonder if you would share with us what ignited your leadership?
Thank you. Great question, Jane. For me, over 30 years ago, some odd years ago, I was going through a tremendous struggle. But I didn't have the blueprint of what it meant to get out of that struggle. And what I was finding was I was looking everywhere for answers. And then it dawned on me that things might work for others, but if I could find something within myself and lead from within, then I would have tenacity and determination like no other. And that's how my company started. It started from a struggle. And when I found that I had the core of what it meant to lead from within, and I succeeded, it's something that became my mantra all these years. I mean, I'm still talking about what it means to lead from within.
Yeah, and you were so far ahead of the curve in that now everyone's caught up with you and it's a common topic that everyone loves. But I think 30 years ago, it was not.
Yeah, well, basically, I wasn't that vogue then either, because I took the core message from the greats, from the philosophers, and most of their work was go within. But I didn't know what that meant exactly. It was only until I realized that I had to have core principles for myself and then lead from those core principles and never go off or have detours with them, just be very cognizant of them in everything that I always did. That really gave me the strength to overcome hardships, struggles, challenges, and consequences my whole life. But the great thing is it doesn't only work with me, it works with others. I found that the way I work or I've worked with myself actually works for every single person that I've encountered, or even that I coach or that I work with. So it's been amazing.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I think it'll work for our viewers as well. I wonder if we could jump forward now. You have a book, The Leadership Gap, coming out in May 2017. Could you tell us more about this concept of the gap?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking. So what I have found is I've always been a person that believed in leading from within. And leading from within is a very important message. But I found that there was a gap between what it meant to lead from within and then being out in the world. And what I found is that who I was being while I was leading or living was very important. And the leadership gap talks about that little void. It's like, who are you? And what I mean by this is that this is very interesting. For all the great parts of who I am, there's a part of me that is a shadow. A part that causes me not to act in the way I'd like to act. So think of it this way. I'll give you an example. So the system that I create is called Rethink. It's 7 archetypes that spell out the word rethink. Let's take the first archetype. So the first archetype is a rebel. What is a rebel? A rebel is someone who wants to make an impact in the world. I knew I wanted to make an impact in the world. I wanted to make a difference. And I found out that if I wanted to do that, I would have to have confidence, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's leading from within.
Mm-hmm.
Find the confidence within you. And that's not so much about talking about affirmations. Oh, Lolly, I believe in myself. Oh, Lolly, you are great. And standing in front of the mirror and saying, I love you, I love you. That's not what that was. What it meant was leading from within means find the confidence in yourself, which means master your skills, have competence in what you do. And when you have competence in what you do, it equals confidence. It's there. It's like if you know you're good at something, you feel good about it.
Yes.
So that was one part that worked for me. But guess what?
Right.
There were many things within me that I wanted to do in the world, and I found that I had a shadow. I had a shadow that was causing a gap. So even though I wanted to make an impact, even though I wanted to do great things, there was a part of me that came across as an imposter that had self-doubt.
Mm.
The imposter wakes up in the morning and says, who do you think you are that you're out there that you think you can make an impact in the world? And it causes you to have self-doubt.
Yeah.
So the book goes through these 7 archetypes that we have, which means leading from within, you know, all the rebel and the explorer and the truth teller. Each has its own wonderful trait. But within each one of those personas, those archetypes, there is a gap. And that gap keeps us from making an impact, keeps us from doing the things we really want to do, and basically keeps us from our greatness. So I have learned a long time ago that if I don't leverage my gap, I won't stand in my greatness the way I want to. So we have to learn what those things are.
That makes a lot of sense. Then of those 7 categories, is each person primarily one, and then are you the rebel?
So I love your question, and I really appreciate you asking that question, because most people will say, so my work is based on Jung's work, which is archetypes. And if people are familiar with Jung, they know that someone has taken his work and created Myers-Briggs. And Myers-Briggs is all about which initial you are, right? It has those 4 initials, and that's what I am. And they wear it like a badge of courage. I am this. But I don't believe that to be true. I believe that we are all parts, some of all these parts. We are these 7 archetypes, but we change in any conversation, in any circumstance, in any stressful situation, in any challenge. We have to become the archetype that is in that moment. So let's talk about another archetype. And by the way, I'm all the archetypes.
Okay.
I come to rethink. I'm a rebel one moment, but right now, what I am with you is a navigator. What's a navigator? A navigator is someone who's like working through a situation, is someone who steers and someone who guides. And one thing about a navigator is they're really smart. They're really smart at what they know. And because they're so smart at what they know, people trust them, right? Those are the experts, right? That people trust experts because they're really good at what they do. But an expert and a navigator has a shadow, has a gap, and they can become a fixer. A fixer is someone that says, oh, you have a problem? Oh, do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, and they're rattling off like all these things that someone should do. Those kinds of people come across maybe as arrogant, and people want to stay away from them. I have to be very mindful to be a navigator at all times. Why? Because I know a lot of my work. I've been doing my work for over 30 years. I know what it means to lead from within and do heart-based leadership. And so I have to be very mindful of my gap. And that's why this work is very important, because we don't realize the shadows that are presented every single day. So I have to, it's almost like an awareness, a deeper awareness of self.
Yeah.
Don't be the fixer, Lolly. Just navigate with Jane. Talk to Jane, steer the conversation with Jane, instead of saying, Jane, this is what lead from within is, A, B, C, D, E. Nobody wants to hear that. It's more of a dialogue. It's more of an interactive, and it's very meaningful.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I recognize that navigator tendency in me.
Most people, right? So we're the sum of all of these. Do you mind if I just label what the archetypes are, just so people can say, wow, which one I am? Do you mind?
I would love that. And I would love it if you would include the gap with each one so we can know, and that's what I want to watch out for.
Okay, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so let's take the first one. The first one, as we talked about, is the rebel who is confident, right? And so the gap is the imposter who has self-doubt, right? And we talked about what that looks like. The next one is the explorer. The explorer is someone who wants to have a new project, a new idea, but an explorer has a very unique trait. They don't use their rational mind to explore something. They use their intuitiveness. They actually let go to let something come in.
Mm.
I believe, Jane, we only know what we know.
Yeah.
Right? And our rational mind and our analytical mind always reviews the same thing over and over again. Sometimes we can get stuck in paralysis of analysis if we don't let go. So the explorer uses their intuition in a way that takes them to new lands, new opportunities, the way they've never had before. So you're asking yourself, what is the gap? What is the gap of the explorer who uses their intuition? It's someone who becomes an exploiter who manipulates. And so you might be asking, how does that work? So if I'm looking for something new and exciting, and I'm asking you to use your intuition, someone might get very scared about stepping out of their comfort zone. And because they want more control, because having your intuition is not a controlling thing, it's a letting go. So if you want more control, if you're scared about letting go, you'll become someone who exploits others, who want to rein it in. And when you rein things in too tight, you tend to manipulate and you tend to be an exploiter of others. That is a very prominent trait that I have found in people that want to do new and exciting things, want to find things they've never been to. So if stepping out of your comfort zone scares you, watch if you are someone who's exploiting others and who's manipulating others. Does that make sense?
That makes total sense. And I'm getting a gut feeling. It's interesting as you're describing this particular archetype and gap. I'm noticing that I'm understanding it more from my gut than my head, which seems appropriate. I wonder, how can a person, since no one likes to feel like an exploiter or a manipulator, how can a person become aware? Like, what are some of the signs that they are engaging in that gap?
That's a great question. One thing is very important, that this book is about leveraging that parts. So I'm not saying these are bad parts about who you are. It's just parts you might not like about yourself, because I don't believe in good and bad. I just believe in that we have things within us we can improve and we can leverage. So I want to make that clear. Okay. So how does somebody recognize that they're manipulating? It's when you just said something very interesting. You said, I'm going by my gut. When a person starts to feel a little bit uncomfortable within themselves, most likely their body will tell them how they're feeling, how they're sounding, how they're acting. That comes before our awareness. It's almost like the body knows before we know. And so when you start to feel uncomfortable about what you're doing, or how people are reacting to you, or what you're hearing, or how you're sounding, that's an indicator. Am I at the best parts of myself, or am I leading from the shadow, my gaps? And it's very easy to then switch and to leverage, because what we're looking for is to say, what is my greatness? My greatness is to do some interesting things, right? Let me let go of control. Let me let go of holding things so tight so I can let things come in. And I think that's very important for most of us.
I love it. Okay, I'm ready for the next.
The next one is extremely hard.
Okay.
The next one is a truth teller. A truth teller is someone who speaks with candor. Most people don't really want to hear the truth. Most people, they are scared to speak the truth. Why? Because they don't want to hurt people, especially if you're someone who leads from within, especially who's someone who has heart-based leadership. Someone would say to me, you sure you want me to tell you the truth? And I always say, to tell the truth, is something that it sets you free, right? It's all those cliches. It sets you free. But also, I have found, and there are studies that actually prove this, is that if you lie, it has a very lingering effect.
Yeah.
If you tell the truth, it hurts for a little. It'll hurt me now, but then I'll work on improving myself. But if you lie, it stays with you for a long, long time. And so what I think is very important today, even today in our climate of what we're going to, speak from your heart, speak the truth. Now, people always ask me, how does lead from within work with speaking your truth?
Mm-hmm.
And I say, if you can lace your truth with empathy, with compassion, with, language of the heart,
Mm-hmm.
you can't really hurt someone with that. They know you have good intentions. So speaking the truth is very important, but doing it in the lead from within way, right? From the heart. So, yes, go ahead. Ask me.
So is the gap then the possibility of not doing it with empathy, of using the truth as a weapon, or?
So that's a great question. So the gap is the deceiver who creates suspicion. So how does that sound like? It's someone who withholds the truth. When you withhold the truth, there's an energy to that. People know you're not telling the whole truth. They know something doesn't feel right. They might not know what it is, but they start to feel suspicious. They start to feel like, what's going on here? They might not understand that you're not telling the whole truth. They might not understand what you're withholding, but it starts to create, remember I said it starts to create a feeling within that doesn't feel good. Mm-hmm. So the gap is that you're a deceiver because you haven't told the truth. And because you haven't told the truth, people around you are suspicious. And when people are suspicious of you, they don't trust you. They don't want to work with you. They don't want to do things with you. So how does this sound like? This sounds like, tell the truth. Oh, the product came in, but it's not up to par how we like it to be. Instead of saying, oh, the product came in, everything is great, it's wonderful. So there's a difference. You need to tell the truth, but table the truth in a way that people understand. We're human. It's better to relate with honesty than with deceiving.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that makes sense, right? You can see the pull and the gap of what it causes.
I can totally see that. And I think I love you're referring to the science, and I know there's science when people lie, not only does the effect linger, but they tend to lie again and again. It becomes a contagion within themselves. So a bad habit. Don't go down that slippery slope.
So here's another study, if you like science.
I love it, yeah.
There's a study that says that every single person's third sentence is a lie, right? And so when they're conversing, so lying is easy, speaking the truth is hard.
Yeah.
I find the most meaningful things in my life don't come easy. So to be a truth teller is really hard, but working on it every single day brings me closer to meaning and to something really purposeful. So it's a very important archetype.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And one that does take constant effort. I'm understanding that as well. Oh, good. So then we've got so far the rebel, the navigator, the explorer, or have we touched on the navigator?
So you think of it spelling rethink. So we have the rebel,
the explorer,
the truth teller, and now we have the next one, which is the hero.
Okay.
I love the hero. Because most people think the hero is someone that's going to run into like a burning flame or is going to rescue you from fire. And it's not that. The hero is someone who can stand up to their life in a very courageous way. The thing is that we have things that are coming at us all the time. They're challenges that are coming, struggles that come towards us all the time. It's not, the best of us have all kinds of challenges. And it's the way we show up to our circumstances. Do we show up being brave or do we show up being fearful? And the thing is that I try to every opportunity to show up extremely courageous. I always say one of the things about leading from within is to find the hero within you, because I believe there's a hero within everyone. And so the hero is a person that has a characteristic of being courageous. So can you imagine what the gap is?
I guess being a coward, if it's an opposite.
Right. But it's a bigger symptom. And the symptom is of a bystander. A bystander is someone who sees something and doesn't do anything, or hears something and doesn't say something about it. It's the bystander who stands on the side of their lives expecting for people to save them, to do things for them, but they themselves don't do anything. Why? Because the underlying thing of what they feel is fear.
Mm.
Most people, they don't want to go through lives not doing things. But what I have found in my studies, and I've been doing this for over 30 years, is that people are fearful. And when they're fearful, they tend to be bystanders. So how do we leverage that? We leverage that by looking, that famous book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And challenging yourself is that even though you are fearful and even though you have a tendency to want to stand on the side, speak up, say something, do something in a little way. I'm not asking you to go bungee jumping, but I am asking you to do little things that scare you every single day.
Nice. Can you, that's so fascinating. And I know it resonates with everyone. Could you maybe give a couple of examples, say with your clients and so on, of the little things?
Well, it all depends what industry I'm coaching in.
Okay.
As a leader, it takes a lot of courage to say that they're vulnerable.
Mm.
A person that is leading thousands and thousands of people of a large corporation, they have to be perfect. They have to know everything. And I encourage my leaders to put themselves out on the line and say, you know what? I don't know everything, but I'll ask enough questions and you'll bring me your expertise and I'll learn from that. And trust me, that is very courageous for a leader at a very high level. You know, the entrepreneurs that I have, so courageous for them is that they also want to create something one of a kind. It has to be perfect. It has to be great. It's courageous to realize that you have imperfection. You know, you're not a perfect person. And you're going to make mistakes. And entrepreneurs fail. And they fail miserably. And it's okay. Be courageous enough to pick yourself up again and do it again and try it again and make it work this time. So it crosses over in every industry and in every aspect of anybody's life. Can you think of something that you did that was courageous recently?
Yes, I can. I'm in a condominium complex here, and there was an effort that I felt needed to be stopped, and no one wanted to stop it. It would have deprived the membership of their ability to vote, basically, or at least to vote effectively. It would have taken away anyway. So I led an effort to stop that, and we succeeded, but it did come at a big personal price. And I'm not a person who, I don't like to fight, but it actually required, in a sense, fighting. And I was glad for the community that it came out okay. But I'm kind of oversensitive, so I'm still feeling a little bit the repercussions.
So have some, this is where you need to go within, right?
Okay.
This is where you need to ask yourself, did my courageous act do something for the better?
Yes, it did.
Where you need to take yourself out of yourself and see what you've created for humanity or for others. We can sometimes get stuck in our own mindset, in our own story. So even though I'm watching you and I can see that it really affected you, and I want to applaud you for being courageous and not being a bystander and not being fearful, you have impacted others in a significant way. And for that, you should be proud. Could, and I hope you would.
Thank you. That's helpful. And I love that advice also of at a point, it's time to just get out of oneself. Oh, good. Okay. So we did truth teller. So now we're on H. What's that?
H is the hero. So now we're the inventor.
Oh, the inventor. Okay.
So the inventor is someone who wants to create something new. They want to do something that hasn't been done before. But something about the inventor is very, very important. Most people, when they invent something, right? Because they're excited about it. But the archetype that we talk about does everything with integrity. That means that they do things at a very high standard. So whatever craft you have, whatever you invent, make sure that it's high standard, it's excellent, it's good quality. Why? Because it makes you stand out from the rest, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you might be saying, okay, so what's the gap? The gap is someone who's a destroyer who is corrupt. And what does that mean? That means that a destroyer says, oh, we're inventing something. Let's just make it cheaper. Oh, we're creating something. Let's make it faster. Let's make it sooner. Let's make it just shinier so it looks better. But what they do is they corrupt. They're not giving you the excellence of what they have to offer from their craft or from their product. They're cutting corners. And when you cut corners, at the very end of the day, it catches up with you. So thinking that you're getting away with something is not really getting away with it because it catches up with you. Mm-hmm. So that's why whatever you do, however you do it with integrity, do it with excellence, because otherwise it comes across as a destroyer who is corrupt.
That makes sense. And I'm hearing do it with excellence. And you've also mentioned, that many of us have a perfectionist technique. How does one balance those?
I love that question because my clients ask that question all the time. So there's some English words that I always ask my clients to, when it comes up, to say cancel, delete, cancel, delete. And one of those words is perfect. I believe when we say, I want this to be perfect, it's unreachable. When you say, I want to create excellence, that means you're doing it to the best of your ability. And whatever you're doing at the best of your ability is good enough. And for some people, it's really good enough. It's like the best of what you could do. So being perfect is not a real thing. Right. And so if we can delete and cancel that word from our vocabulary about ourselves, we could do much better.
Nice. Oh, good. Okay. I'm ready for the next.
So the next one was the Navigator, which we talked about is steering and going through things. And because they're really, really good at steering people and guiding people and coming up with practical and pragmatic solutions, people trust them. Again, the gap is, just to remind you again, is the fixer who's rattling off 1,000 ways how to do things. People don't trust them. People think they're arrogant. So we have to be very mindful. The very successful, the very smart have a tendency to be fixers. And so we want to be very mindful that we leverage that gap, and we're always navigating. We're always slowing down our pace of how we give information. And I have a little thing that I do for myself. So one of the things that I'm very mindful is if someone comes to me and says, can you help me with something? And I go, okay, they asked me for help, right? That's the code word, help, right? That's a navigator.
Yeah.
And so when someone asks you for help, you want to be very mindful not to become a fixer because they didn't say, I need your advice. They haven't given you permission yet.
Right.
So when they are very clear in their way of speaking, I need you to help me. I need you to give me ways of what I could do. That means, okay, I can then give them the steps. But otherwise, as a navigator, I'm always a questioner. I'm always steering them to find the answers within themselves, because I find that people feel more empowered when they have found the solution themselves. So as a navigator, I'm more of a questioner, inquisitive person. Unless they say, oh my God, Lali, I really need your help. Can you give me the steps? Can you guide me really step by step? Then I tend to be more of the fixer. Okay, A plus B plus C plus D. But I'm very mindful to listen to the difference of what they're asking me.
And as you were learning this strategy to be more effective, I'm just thinking about myself. I think I what comes up is a feeling of impatience, like, but no, I want to help you faster. And do you have any tips on or advice on how to let go of that? Or
so can I give you some insight? I don't want to talk about you, but I'll give you some insight about the fixer.
Yes.
So the fixer has a horrible, what should I call it? It's a gap. It's a shadow. What happens is the fixer wants to be liked. They want to be loved. They want to be validated. And when you have this underlining, I need to be loved and I want to be appreciated for what I do, then you tend to be the fixer. But if someone can give themselves the validation that they need, and if they realize they don't have to be the pleaser, and if they realize they don't have to be the martyr, and they don't have to do all these things for others so others can notice them, it's easier to become the navigator. So it's more about yourself, about this archetype, than others. So yeah, others will come at you and they'll ask you questions, but I always ask myself, do I need validation now? Do I need appreciation now? Do I need to please someone now? Am I showing up as a martyr? And I always say, fix the fixer first. Like, do your own work before you can help others. Let others fend for themselves. They'll like you more. They'll give you more validation that way because you make them feel good. So I don't know if I answered your question, but I'm almost trying to give you the nuances of what a fixer is like so you can recognize it within yourself. And if you start to sound like a pleaser, and if you start to sound like a martyr, it's time to pivot.
That, and I know you weren't trying to talk about me, but that did completely resonate, utterly. And I'm so surprised because I would not have guessed that the fixer would have this issue of trying to please. I might have thought some other archetype would have that issue. That is so interesting. Any background on that as to why that is, or?
It's a great question. What I have found, and I've seen this in the people that I work with, it's like the bigger fixers are the ones who always complain about nobody sees them. They're invisible in the organization. They're invisible to others, and they're not appreciated. And so it was very easy for me to make that connection, how smart they are in some things, but how they're not very smart about themselves. And so I believe that, a fixer is a wonderful person. They're very, very smart, but it is the gap. It is the shadow parts of ourselves. And it does come across as arrogant. But if you can just tweak that and be more inquisitive and be more of a listener, be more silent, you'll get more of what you've always wanted than if you are a fixer.
Right. I love that. And I just love the connection with wanting to be loved because, wow, I never would have guessed that. That is fascinating. And I love that you've uncovered that in your years of working with people, that's risen to the top. Let's see. What's
one more archetype?
Yes. Okay.
So the last one is the knight. And the knight is not about gender, but it's more about character.
Okay.
The character of the knight is someone who is loyal. It's someone who's very protective of others. It's someone that sounds like this. How can I help you? How can I honor you? How can I serve you? And they're all about others. It's a servant heart. It's all about, anything to be of service, right?
Yeah.
And they're protective, and they're duty bound, and they're honor bound. It's a very beautiful, beautiful, beautiful archetype. I love the knight, but guess what? There is a gap.
Yeah.
And we are going to recognize this gap in all of us, and especially I have 3 grown children, and I've seen this gap. And the gap is the mercenary, the one who's self-serving. And it says, what have you done for me lately? How can you serve me? How can you support me? It's the generation of me, 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 me. It's all about self. And when you do all about self, your world is very small. It's only of one. And so I always believe that if you really want to make an impact, if you really want to stand in your greatness, you're going to need a group of people to stand with you. And what the knight understands at the heart of the knight is that when I help you, you help me. When I serve you, you serve me. When I protect you, you will protect me. And that's it's so beautiful to end with the knight, because the knight brings all the archetypes almost together. It's like all the things of navigating with someone and exploring things with someone. We are much better as a collaborative world than we are of, look at me, look what I've done. I'm the one who's great. I'm the one who did this. That's not really someone who's serving others or making a big impact in the world. It's really the ones who take others along with them that have the biggest impact.
And you mentioned that, how nice it is to end with the knight, because that wrap brings in a lot of the others. Is there any kind of evolution here where one moves from one archetype to the next, or how does that work?
Great question. And I don't think that's to be true. What I have found is that it depends. Like today, I'm of service to you. What an honor it was to actually say, Lolly, do you want to have this conversation with me? And so I was thinking all about you. But in turn, this conversation is enlightening me. I'm learning about you. I'm honoring you, and you're serving me. And it's a wonder. So in this opportunity, we're the knights to each other. So we're really not one thing or another, but we tend to lean towards something. So I carry all of these archetypes within me because I'm someone that's always like wanting to do more and be more and dive in deeper. So who do you think, which archetype you are? I would like to turn the question on you. Which one do you think you tend to lean towards?
Well, I think the strongest one is Navigator, and I also have Rebel and Truth Teller would be my top three.
So that's what you would lean in. But we're going to need you one time or another to be an explorer and an inventor. And I'm like, even today, you're doing things at a high standard. So you have a little bit of everything. And the great thing why it is a rethink model is because we tend to think we know things the way we should be. Mm-hmm. The truth is, if we are going to lead to our greatness, we have to rethink everything we are doing constantly to take us to the next level. So that's why it's the rethink system, but it's the rethink system of the leadership gap. It's those gaps that keep us from playing to our greatness that is so important to be mindful of.
That makes sense. And especially since you show they're the shadow of a strength. And so people might not notice them because they're relying so much on their strengths.
Right. Exactly, Jane. Exactly.
And as people are waiting for your book to come out, if it's not out by the time they watch this video, do you have any best practices, say, that you do every day or week or month just to keep yourself on your leadership track and that others might be able to adopt?
Great question. I do many things religiously, but I'd like to share one. One of the things that is very important to me, because I'm always of service to others, mm-hmm. I have had to learn to go, what does it mean to lead from within? It's to go inward, right? To find out the best parts of who you are and bring those best parts to the outside world. And the way that I ground myself in is gratitude. Mm. What I have found is that there's a lot of chaos in the world. There's a lot of challenges in the world. And so I have a practice that I do twice a day. Before I get out of bed in the morning, I think of all the things that I'm grateful for, that I'm looking forward to today. Jane, you were on my little list this morning. So I was so grateful to connect with you, and it felt good. It made me feel excited, and it made me feel I have something to look forward to. And in the evening, instead of going through all the things that didn't work, all the things that aren't working, and all the things I still have to do tomorrow, one of the things that I have found extremely helpful is to then again say, I'm grateful for this went right. I'm grateful that I have this in my life. And though the two bookends of my day really make my day grounded in energy, enthusiasm, and in heart, compassion, empathy, all those wonderful things that make you more centered. And that's a practice I've been doing for over 34 years. And I find that it's a real game changer.
Yeah. That's interesting. Gratitude has been a game changer in my life for many, many years as well. I think I'm getting the sense from you that you're very, grounded and pragmatic and spiritual, but not, you're not going to advise anyone to do sort of things that may not work and that may seem sort of superficial. And I wonder, I don't know if I'm making any sense, but for some people affirmations work, but not for everybody, and that kind of thing. For some people, saying I love you to oneself does wonders. For others, maybe not. What do we do with, as we're all we're focusing on gratitude, we're always, aiming for the positive. What do you advise people to do with, the negativities that come up in life? How should they navigate those?
So, great question again, but I want to clarify something. Okay. It's not that I don't believe in affirmations. I think affirmations are great, but affirmations just alone don't change the world.
Yeah.
So affirmation plus action is great.
Okay.
Standing in front of a mirror and saying, I love you, I love you, I love you is good up to a certain point. But then what else, right? So I think it's very important to create an action with it. So I love you, then go out and do something wonderful and then come back and say, I love you because you helped someone. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like, so yeah. I'm a big believer of that. I mean, I've read many books and I remember stating many affirmations in my life, but I always felt there was a missing piece to that. And so I always, as you can tell, I like to dive deeper into things. So I found action helps.
Mm-hmm.
So to answer your question, so how does someone guard themselves against negativity? So again, here we go back to lead from within.
Yeah.
And what does that mean? That means is that we can always look at something the glass half empty or half full. And the thing is that if we see negativity as something that's horrible, that's something that's really bad for us, then guess what? It's really bad for us. I have a lot of challenges all the time, and I constantly have to remind myself, oh, this is a lesson. You're going to be so much smarter after this lesson. And the bigger the challenge, I go, wow, the bigger the knowledge I'll have, something that I'll be able to tell my clients about that they don't have to go through. So I find that it's a mindset. I find that how I think about things really saves me. And I'm not perfect, right? We don't want to be perfect, right? I am human. And so, but I find that the mindset or the thinking of how I am and the feeling of how I am really helps me with negativity.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think part of what I'm hearing here is that you're not repressing it or it's because there's no good or bad, right? It's just part of the bigger picture. But if you see it as part of the bigger picture and it being a good thing to see the bigger picture, then in a sense, it is a good thing to include it.
It is what it is, right? It's not almost, it's Buddhism, they would say it's not good, or it is what it is, right? It's a nothing. It's something of nothing, right? You just have to go with it. And so, I'm not this kumbaya kind of person. I'm really human, but I try to translate whatever I'm going through, that it's either sometimes I pray this too shall pass, right? And I have to just go through it. It's not very good to be a bystander and not go through things. You have to be the hero in your life that goes through things to get to the other side. Mm-hmm. So negativity is not something I say, I look at it and I go, oh, that's not negative. No, I go through the negativity, learn my lesson so I don't have to learn it again. It's like once is enough.
Yeah. And you mentioned the importance of taking action. And it seems like that is also one of those routes often through negativity, right? Instead of being shell-shocked and paralyzed, just keep going.
Right. Do something to get the energy moving, the situation to change. Do something. Don't stand still. Absolutely.
Nice. Thank you so much for this interview. And Lolly, where can people, first of all, I'd like to ask you, is there anything else you'd like to add or to share with our viewers?
Yes. First of all, as I said earlier, it's a true honor to be here with you today and learning more about you and who you are and how courageous you are. It's a real privilege. Oh. Thank you so much, Jane. And I hope that this Rethink model is not to call people out on what they're doing wrong, but it's how they can stand in their greatness that really matters to me. Learn to lead from within. Learn to mind your gaps, because the truth is that we're all meant to stand in our greatness, and I hope this helps them. So thank you for this opportunity, for allowing me to share my system with you and with others that are listening. So thank you very much.
Oh, my pleasure.